In this video, we will look at how you can add subscriptions to your Appwrite applications using Stripe. We will use Appwrite functions, database, and authentication to make this happen. And I'm going to show you what we are going to build. So yeah, let's get on to it. All right, so this is what we are going to build. First of all, it's going to start with login with Google. Then we can click on it and it will authenticate us and it will say current plan is free. And now we have two different plans. One is Pro, which is a $20 a month plan, and Pro Max, which is a $200 a month plan. So if I go to Pro, subscribe to Pro, it will take me to the Stripe checkout page. And now I can choose my preferred method. So this is a test checkout. It does not actually cost you money. So I can simply say 424242, and it's actually a test card from Stripe. So it should just succeed without any problems. And now we can just click on subscribe. It will take a bit and it will process your transaction, and then we should be redirected back to our website. And now it says our current plan is Pro. Now it is not ended yet. We have yet to showcase some stuff. So now if we go back to our subscription, if we try to reload this, we will see that this subscription is active. What if somebody is trying to abuse my platform and I want to remove the subscription? I think this is the perfect chance, right? I can simply go ahead and click on the cross which says cancel subscription, and I can select immediately and click on cancel subscription. Now once that is done, I haven't touched any of the databases, and if I go back and reload this page, it should be free. So Stripe sent us the signal that hey, this subscription is cancelled by you, and we just updated the database internally to cancel that subscription and unprovision all benefits from the user. All right, before we start with all the coding, I really want to just quickly show you how this is going to work, the architecture behind it. It's pretty simple, but I still wanted to show you this. So we are going to have three components in the play in this video. It's going to be the user, the server, and Stripe. So it's going to be labeled like this. So first of all, this is the browser. Then we have Stripe itself, Stripe and their entire infrastructure. And then we have Appwrite functions. Okay, real quick. For those who aren't familiar, Appwrite functions is a way to run custom code on the server while still benefiting from the Appwrite ecosystem. Think of Appwrite functions as you being able to run a custom HTTP server without the hassle of hosting it elsewhere from Appwrite. Appwrite functions are great when you have to implement custom logic, for example, like in this video where we will be tightly integrating with Stripe services. Perfect. So these three components will play a big part. So what will happen? We are just assuming that the user is logged in at this point. What would happen when I just start to create a new subscription? The browser will send a request to the Appwrite function. It will just mention that I want the Pro plan or maybe Pro Max plan, but just consider that we want the Pro plan. So it will send the Appwrite function that, hey, I want the Pro plan. Can you give me the link to buy this? So Appwrite function will then contact Stripe that, hey, this person wants to buy the Pro plan. Just give me the link. So, and then Stripe will contact Appwrite functions again. It will say that, yeah, it's fine. Here's the link. It will give you a link. And then Appwrite functions can go back to the browser. It can give back the URL which it received. It's pretty simple. And now the browser can go to the URL and go direct to the Stripe, complete the payment, and then Stripe can redirect them back to our Appwrite functions. After the redirect is done, we do all the checks here. We do everything. We provision the user with whatever they bought stuff. So we provision everything, and then we finally just redirect back. This is how the entire thing will work. It's going to be a connection between browser, Appwrite functions, and Stripe. It's kind of a triangle if you understand what I mean. So yeah, let's get started. We will start with the Appwrite functions first. We will establish the communication with Stripe. We will set up various stuff like Appwrite databases, Appwrite authentication, and then we will move on to the client-side application where we will create a React application to deal with everything. So yeah, let's get started. All right, first of all, we start with creating an Appwrite project. So how do we do that? We can simply go ahead and install Appwrite CLI. I already have that installed, but if you don't already have that, you can do npm install-g Appwrite CLI. So this will install the CLI and you can use all the commands, but I already do have that installed, so I can simply use it. I'm going to use the command Appwrite init project. Now this will ask me to create a new project. So I'm just going to create a new project because I already don't have one for this. And I'm going to use Appwrite test organization. The name of the project will be I guess stripe test, or I can just say stripe. ID will be unique, and now we can simply check what is here. Now we only have appwrite.json. This is our starting point. Now what we can do is we need to use Appwrite functions to make this happen, because anything related to Stripe needs to happen on the server side. So we need to use functions. So I can simply say Appwrite init functions, and now I can name it. I can just call it Stripe as well. ID can be anything, and for the runtime I'll choose the latest one, which is Node 22, and I can simply use the cheapest one. Perfect. Now if we check, now we have functions folder. For now I'm just gonna go to cd functions, and inside that there should be a Stripe folder. We also need to install dependencies. So when you are here, we can simply do npm i, and it should install Node Appwrite, which is the package used to interact with Appwrite on a Node backend. We also need to install Stripe, because of course we need to interact with Stripe as well. And I'm gonna do cursor dot, and now we have a starting point of this file. Now here on out we will modify this file to make everything happen. Alright, so this basically is a client which has like full access. This is the admin client, so I will rename it to admin client, because we will have a normal client before which will represent the user which is logged into the application. So yeah, I just need to rename this to admin client as well. Everything else I don't need. I'm just gonna remove this. And now what we need to do is we need to define our different routes. For this video we will need 4 different routes. I know it sounds a lot, but I trust me, we need those. Okay, so the 4 paths we need to just first of all have an if condition to check that. So cursor has already guessed it properly, but it's not the ping path. We need payments path, which will actually be the entry point for all payments. Yeah, we'll do something here. We will just do return handle payments, which we will create. I'll just do this. I will just enclose that in an object so that we can have these things somewhere else. 4 paths we need is very aligned to this, so I'm just going to replace these with these 4. It says first out is payments, our entry point for all the payments. Second is webhook, which Stripe will contact whenever something changes, or whenever someone cancels the subscriptions or creates a subscription. Then we have a check route, which is our own custom check route, which will be redirected after the payment is successful and the subscription will be checked and any deliverables will be delivered. And then we have the get subscription route, which will simply be used for our front end to get the plan we are on right now. And if none of these is the case, we are just gonna do error not found, and this is going to be a 404 error. So yeah, now you might be wondering what is client here. This is the client which represents the user itself. So we are gonna remove the users here. We don't need those. We need something like this, but instead of set key, we need set JWT. And we need to set Appwrite user JWT. So what would happen is whenever the user sends a request, the JWT will be in the header, and we will use that JWT to kind of impersonate the user on the backend side, so that we can access the account details of that specific user, and we can know which user is currently logged in, which is pretty handy. And now we need to just create the handlers for these different routes. So I can simply just go ahead and create new file. I can simply just call payments.js, and I can simply do export default function handle payments. And I'm just gonna leave this empty for now. I'm just gonna copy this and do this 4 times, and I'll be back. Now we have different files for different routes created. We have check, we have get subscription, we have payments, and we have webhooks, and we have all the things we need to make this happen. First of all, we'll start with payments because that's our entry point for payment. So first of all, we need to get access to the databases. So how are we gonna do that? We are just gonna say const databases is equal to new databases, and we will import this from Node Appwrite, and we need to pass an admin client for this because we want to have a full access to databases, which not every user might have. And then we will need the current logged in user. So we'll do const account is equal to new account, and we're just going to pass in client because we want the logged in user. And then we are going to try to get the user. So const user is equal to await account.get. And we are doing this. Oh, this should be an asynchronous function, my bad. Yeah, we are doing this so that we can check if the user is logged in or not, and we can just be sure about it. If the user is not logged on, we will just throw a 401 error saying that access is denied, you should be logged in. We will also have one more check. We will just see if the request method should be post. So I'm just going to put it on top before doing anything. So if the request method is get, we should not be able to go any further than this. And now we need to actually get started with the plans. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to define the plans we have, the valid plans we have. So you can store this in the database or do whatever you want, but for this video I can simply do server plans and make an array, and I'm just going to say Pro and Pro Max. These are the two plans we will be offering through our application, and these are the two plans which our backend will accept. Now I just want to run a quick check to see if what we are getting is from these plans or not. So I'm just going to paste this here. So we are just checking if we are getting a plan. First of all, if we are getting a plan, which plan is that? Is it a valid plan which we are accepting? We are checking that. And if it's not the case, we are just throwing an error. And then we can just deal with Stripe. So we can simply do const Stripe is equal to new Stripe. And now we can simply pass in the Stripe secret key. So this should be in the environment variable ideally. So yeah, the reason I'm not putting an environment variable in this folder is because we need to configure it in the function setting anyways. So you don't need to actually do that here unless you're testing locally. Perfect. And now we can simply try to get the database stuff. So first of all, before we do that, we need to actually configure the database. So let's go to the Stripe project here. And now we can go into databases and we can now create a new databases. I'm going to name it main.db and just create that. Perfect. Now we need to create a few collections. The first one is Stripe customers. A lot of people make this mistake while integrating Stripe is that they do not integrate, like they don't keep a map of Stripe customers to their database ID. In my opinion, Stripe customers is really important. It creates a mess if you don't have them, and it's very difficult to track who canceled your subscription and stuff. So yeah, now first of all, we need to create an attribute. It is first of all going to be user ID, and I'm just going to give it 30 to be safe, and I'm just going to keep it to be required. And the next attribute would be Stripe customer ID, and this should be 30 as well. So this collection is basically keeping track of all your Stripe customers, and whenever a Stripe customer is created, we will store that and store the Stripe customer ID as well. The next thing we need is a subscriptions table. So we will create that right now. And now here we'll create an attribute. First of all, I want user ID to be an attribute. Size should be 30 and it should be required. And the second attribute would be the actual plan. So whenever the payment succeeds, the payment goes through, we want to update the plan here so that we can actually provision the user with all the benefits. So size, I think 10 should be enough in our case, but in your case, if the plan name is like long enough, you probably should be updating this. All right, now we have all the things we need. We will need these IDs eventually. I think we will need them right now. After this, we actually need to get the Stripe customer ID if we already have that. So the reason I'm doing this is because we don't want to create a Stripe customer every single time, because Stripe can duplicate the customers. So we need to check if we already have track of that user in our database or not. And if not, then we'll create a customer on the Stripe side. So to do that, I'm simply going to say const Stripe customer doc is equal to await databases dot list documents, and here we are gonna just first of all pass in the database ID. So we need to actually get the database ID as well. I'm gonna copy the database ID and just gonna paste this here. You could technically have this in an environment variable, it doesn't matter. Then we need to have the Stripe customers collection ID. So just copy this and just paste this here. And the next thing we need is a query. So to query the database, we need to use a specific syntax. So we have a query object where we can import, and then we can simply say query.equal, and we want to check if the user ID field is equal to the actual user ID. So user dot, okay, so are we not getting the user somewhere? Yeah, we haven't imported account. So yeah, please try to use TypeScript whenever you can. So yeah, user dot ID. So basically this query is searching if there is any document in the Stripe customers table which matches this user ID, and if there is no record, we have to create a new customer. So we need to create the logic for that. So if Stripe customer doc dot length, dot documents dot length, if it is 0, then we need to do something, and if not, then we need to just do something else. So what is the aim here? We need the Stripe customer ID so that we can pass it to Stripe. So we can just declare a variable here, and yeah, now we can simply just create a new Stripe customer. So let's go ahead and create a new Stripe customer. To do that, we can simply use this. We can simply say const customer is equal to await stripe.customers.create, and now we will have the customers. But the next thing we need to do is actually save this in the database. So how are you going to do this? We are going to say await databases.create document. Yeah, we need to just provide the database ID here. I'll just copy this and paste this here. Perfect. So basically this is creating a document inside the Stripe customers collection, and we are just saying that we need the collection, the document ID should be user ID, and we are passing in the user ID and the Stripe customer ID here. So yeah, this should actually create the customer, and then we can simply say Stripe customer ID is equal to customer.id, or else we can simply just get it from the database and set it. The next thing we can do is simply just create a checkout session using Stripe. So const checkout session is equal to await stripe.checkout.sessions.create, and now we can simply just pass in the customer so that every subscription or every purchase made by this customer will be listed under that specific customer in the Stripe dashboard. So we can simply pass Stripe customer ID. Next, we need to set the mode. We are offering subscriptions here, so I'll just set it to subscription. If you are like doing static payments, like one-time payments, feel free to do that. The next thing is success URL, and the cancel URL. So for now, I'm just gonna leave this to empty because we need to set this once the function is deployed. So I'm just gonna leave this to empty and gonna set this later. But for the line items, we need to actually go ahead and pass in the prices for that specific thing. So how do we define prices? We need to actually create a product on the Stripe side. So let's go to Stripe and actually create a new product. So I'm gonna create a product here, and I'm gonna call it Pro, and you can just set anything you want, but here I'm just gonna say the price should be 20, and I'm just gonna add the new product. And we are also gonna do the same for the Pro Max product. So create a new product. I'm just gonna say Pro Max, and yeah, this is going to be 200. So yeah, let's add the product. The products created, we can get the price ID for them. But now first I wanna go to VS Code. I wanna start trying to list this. So first of all, we are gonna create an object, and we are gonna have a price here. Technically you should be mentioning a price ID here, but we need to first check the plan itself. So if plan is Pro, then we need to pass in a certain price ID, and if not, then we need to pass some other price ID. Since we only have 2 plans, a ternary operator can work. If you have multiple plans, you probably should use an if statement to get the price ID. So let's just go ahead to the Pro plan and just copy the price ID. So let's wait for it to load. Yeah, let's go ahead, copy the price ID, and we can just paste this here as a string. You can also put this in an environment variable, which is absolutely recommended. And now let's go to Pro Max, and let's copy price ID and just paste this here. Perfect. Now if the plan selected is Pro, this price ID will be used so that Stripe knows that this is the subscription we want. And then after this is done, we simply want to send the URL back to the customer so that they can finally do the payment and get the subscription they want. So return response.json, and here we are just going to pass checkout URL, and we are just say checkout session.url, which will have the URL which when the user goes to this URL, they will see a payment form. All right. The next thing what happens is, if you remember what I told you, when we do a payment using when we complete the payment, the Stripe actually goes and tells Appwrite functions using webhooks. So we need to first actually go here and go to the webhook.js file, and we need to actually start working on this. So for webhooks, there's a lot of boilerplate Stripe already has, which we are trying to avoid. So I'm just gonna copy paste this. This is basically ensuring that Stripe is sending those webhooks and nobody else is faking this. So basically we are just trying to verify the signatures and see if this is sent by Stripe or not. The next thing we want is we need to absolutely initiate databases. So const databases is equal to new databases. We need to import this and we need to pass admin client then. Perfect. And next thing we need is an allowed events array. So all of the events that I need to process and which are relevant for us is these ones. Of course, if you are doing something else, if there is something else you want to keep track of, you probably should check Stripe's documentation and get the specific event for it. But for subscriptions, I think these events are just fine. We need to keep track of these events. And right away, if we are getting an event which is not from any of these, we are just gonna respond with okay. Like, we are not gonna do anything with it. Thanks for sending the event. The next thing we need is we need to check the Stripe customer ID for that specific. We need to check out the Appwrite user ID for that specific Stripe customer ID. So to do that, we are just gonna say const subscriber doc databases dot list documents. We need to get the database ID here. So I'm just gonna copy this. I'm just gonna paste it here. The next thing we need is the collection ID. So again, we need to get the collection ID from here, and we're gonna paste this here. The next thing we need is the query again. So okay, so it is giving a problem with await. We need to actually add async here. All right, so now we can simply add a query. We need to actually import query, and then we can simply do Stripe query.equal Stripe customer ID, and we are just gonna get the event.data.object.notID.customer. So this is going to be the customer ID for that specific transaction. So now we can simply just get the associated Appwrite user ID, because we are just assuming that the user ID already exists, because if the payment is already created, the user might have already been created in the previous step. So if the user is not existing previously, there's no way that the webhook will be get triggered for them. So now when we have the user ID for the app, when we have the Appwrite user ID, we actually wanna list the subscriptions, and we wanna double check if the user has already subscribed or not. What we could have already done is we could have checked the webhook events to see, but I don't think that is a very reliable way. I think just checking with Stripe again is really reliable. So we should try to do this. So now this is going to basically get all the subscriptions which are active for that specific Stripe customer. And then we are just gonna create a let plan, and and then we are actually gonna figure out which plan we wanna give it. So what's gonna happen? First of all, we need to check if there's subscription or not. So if there is literally 0 subscriptions for that user, there is no subscription, we actually wanna give it a free plan. So we actually need to create the provision function. Just give me a moment. We will do that eventually, but I would really wanna get done with this route first. So just understand that this provision route will actually give them the benefits. So we'll just pass in the plan which we need, the user ID, Appwrite user ID, and the admin client. It's going to be pretty straightforward, but we will create this. So the reason we are doing this is because a lot of the times user also cancel the subscriptions. The subscriptions get revoked. In that case, if the subscription length is 0, we want to actually revoke the subscription on our end. So we can simply say plan equal to free and subscription will get revoked. But if there is a plan existing, we actually want to do a switch statement. We're going to just go ahead with all the price IDs and check. So let me just see if the price IDs match here or not. Yeah, they do. Perfect. If there is specific price ID, we can just map the plan to Pro or Pro Max, and then we can simply do provision again. So we can simply say await provision, just add the plan, just add the user ID from which we just add the Appwrite user ID and just pass the admin client. And after everything is done, we need to pass in an OK message so that the webhook doesn't keep retrying it again. So yeah, perfect. Now we can simply go ahead and create the provision function so that we can actually provision the user with the benefits. So in SRC, I want to create a new folder called as utils, and here I want to create provision.js. And now here I actually want to add the provisioning code. It's going to be pretty simple. This is the provisioning code. It's going to be export default function provision. We are going to get the database. Then we are going to find that specific subscription in the subscriptions table. We're going to see if the record already exists or not. We do not want to create duplicate records. So if a record already exists, we want to just update it. The only thing we need to do here is we need to replace these with the strings. So let's do that. Perfect. Now what's happening here is like if we try to get a subscription, if there is already an record, we just update it. If there is not, we create it. It's as simple as that. And we just pass in the plan so that if on the webhook we say provision pro plan, it will just set the plan to pro here. And that way you will know that which user is on which plan on your internal database. Of course, you can check with Stripe as well. But now we also need to go to check.js to do the same thing. So why check.js? Why are we creating this file when we already have a webhook? So Stripe has this weird race condition. So whenever you go and do your payment on Stripe, the Stripe will actually go ahead and make a webhook. I actually didn't made an arrow for it. My bad. It will make a webhook, but there is a very good possibility that you will get redirected back to your application before the webhook is sent out to your Appwrite functions. And in that case, the user will not see the subscription at all, which is terrifying. You know, there might be support requests that you might get that, hey, I didn't get my subscription. What do I do? So what we do is instead of redirecting back to the browser directly, we redirect the user back to the Appwrite function, which will then check if the person has the subscription or not using the Stripe SDK. And if the subscription exists, we will give it right away before even redirecting back to a client application. That way we are ensuring that we definitely know if the payment has went through and this person has gotten his deliverables or not before going to the browser. That's very important for us. So yeah, so this function is basically going to do that. So now in check.js file, we are basically going to do a lot of different things really similarly. So first of all, we need to actually get the checkout ID, which Stripe will send us, don't worry. Query is basically something like this. So our route is going to be /check, right? So we are just going to have a checkout ID and we are going to have something like this. So we are just going to get the checkout ID so that we can fetch the checkout status from Stripe SDK. And then we are just also initializing our database. So then we are also going to check if we should actually do this before. So if the checkout ID does not exist, we are just going to say checkout ID is required and 400. So basically this is not a natural request. No, like naturally this should never happen. This would be a request fired manually by a user, and we should crack down on it and say that, hey, this is not cool. So yeah, then we have Stripe. We need to pass in the Stripe secret key, which we will set in the functions dashboard. And then we actually need to get the checkout session. I'm just going to copy this. And yeah, we again need to have this as async function. My bad. So we will get the checkout session, and now we can simply check if the user is subscribed or not. Then we can simply just get the subscriptions for that specific user. So now that we have the checkout session, we can simply do subscriptions. So so the reason we use checkout session, we try to fetch this checkout session, is because we can get the customer. Now we have the customer, and we have all the subscriptions. I don't like to depend on webhooks for this because of the race conditions and stuff and how unreliable it can be. But now we do sure shot know that if the user has a subscription or not. And then the logic is pretty much the same. So what are we doing here? We are doing almost the same thing. We are just going to replace the database stuff, of course, here. Yeah, we are also going to replace the Stripe and now, yeah, front-end URL we also need to set. Actually, we can simply just say localhost 5173 because we are actually doing this on local stuff for now. Localhost 5173. So what exactly are we doing here? First of all, we are doing a check to get the Appwrite user ID. I misspelled this. And then we can simply just check if the subscription exists or not, like how we did in the previous step. We are simply just mimicking the logic here, and we are just doing the same thing again. So we are just doing double checks to make sure that the user has a subscription before they return back to the client side. And now we have that, we can simply just go ahead and create a final route, which is the get subscription route, which should be by far the easiest route. So I'm just gonna copy this and just gonna paste this. And yeah, so what we are getting the databases, we are getting the account. So basically, to get if you are subscribed or not, you need to be first authenticated to access this route. So we are just gonna try to check if the user is authenticated or not, and then we are gonna see we gotta replace this. Yeah, so we gotta see if the subscription exists for that specific user, and we need to actually get that. And if there is no subscription, we will just return that, hey, you have a plan free. And if there is some subscription other than free, like Pro or Pro Max, we can just return that as a JSON. So this route is basically for your client side to interact. Now that we have the server completed, let me just check that we do not have any import issues. Really don't want to deal with those. Yeah, I think we will need something here. So we need to import databases. We need to import Stripe. I just went ahead and replaced everything with correct IDs. That was my fault. Other mistake was this with subscription docs, and it should be subscription docs everywhere. And it just doesn't work. Usually it just works, but it just says subscriber doc for some reason. Cursor is going absolutely crazy on me. But yeah, another thing which was wrong, it was like Stripe subscription ID. We have to change it to Stripe customer ID. So yeah, because that's the field in the document. So if you go to attributes here, we can see the Stripe customer ID. One more thing which we missed is we actually need to provide the quantity here, which will cause errors. Quantity should be 1. All right, so we need to deploy this function now. So how can we do that? First of all, we'll go back to our project root, which is Stripe, and here we can find the appwrite.json file, and now we can simply do appwrite push functions. Now this will push these functions to our Appwrite project. So now we can simply hit space and hit enter, and now it's going to create a new function and it's deploying now. So let's wait for this. Should not take a lot of time, and then we can see if it appears on the dashboard or not. So yeah, if you know what, we can simply just go to our dashboard right now and see. So if we go to functions, we can see there is Stripe now existing. It says that the deployment is active, and we have the URL right now. So now we need to actually update the URL because we need those. Let's go ahead and copy this. Let's go to payments.js, and now here we wanna actually pass the success URL and cancel URLs. So just paste this in and just say check, and the ID should be Stripe checkout ID, which is given by Stripe. So yeah, checkout session ID. And we'll do the same thing for cancel URL because we don't want to have a custom logic. Or else, you know what, like if the checkout is cancelled, we can simply just redirect to the front end. So localhost 5173. Now we want to actually deploy this again. So let's go to our terminal and do this again. So appwrite push functions. Perfect. Now let's just hit enter. Let's wait for this. And there's one more thing we need to do before we actually go ahead. Let's wait for this. Okay, it will get deployed anyways, but what I want to do is go into settings, and when we need to like change the permission of how much this function is allowed to do. So I want to include authentication and databases, because those two things we are going to use. You can actually go ahead and refine these much more towards what you're going to use, but I'm just going to leave it here, and I'm just going to click on update. And it should just not work right away. What we need to do is actually pull this now. So I'm just going to do Appwrite pull functions, and now I'm just going to pull the configuration so that the appwrite.json. So if I just go to cat appwrite.json, we can see that now the permissions stuff is updated. So we have the scopes now. So now we just need to do appwrite push functions again. So this will ensure that our function can actually access our databases and the users without any problem. So now we can actually start working on our front end. Let's wait for this. Perfect. Now what I want to do is like I want to actually go ahead and also set a auth before we do anything else. In settings, we actually need to go to Google, because that's the authentication which we are going to use. You're going to need to include your client, your app ID and app secret for Google. I'm actually going to go to console.cloud.google.com. I'm going to move this here. And now let's go to this menu here and go to credentials. Where is credentials? Yeah. And now you need to actually create a new OAuth client ID. Application type should be just web application. I'm just going to name it web client 2. And the next thing we need is the redirect URIs. So I'm just going to go ahead here again, and I'm just going to copy this URL, paste this here. And here I'm just going to say HTTP localhost 5173. And I'm just going to click on create. And now we should have the client ID and client secret, which we can just enter here. Perfect. Update. Now we should be able to use Google authentication in our project. All right. So real quick, we actually do need to create a webhook. So let's go ahead and go to our functions. First of all, we want to actually get the URL for functions so that we can actually mention that URL while creating the webhook. So let's just get the the URL. And now we can simply go to Stripe, and let's go to developers. Let's go to webhooks. And now we can simply go to add a destination, and I wanna go ahead and select all events. For now it's fine. You can choose whatever events you want. We are still going to trim it down anyways in our endpoints. So yeah, for the snapshot payloads, we need to have HTTPS. We need to paste in the URL and just say webhook. Perfect, and continue. For the thin payloads, we don't really care about them. We can simply just say HTTPS, and we can just say thin. We won't be handling these. We don't need these. Let's just add these destinations, and we would have a webhook running. Perfect. Now, anytime something changes on the Stripe side of things, we will get notified. We do also need to get the Stripe webhook secret. So I'm just gonna copy this, and we need to actually go ahead into the functions. We need to go to settings, and we need to add it into the environment variable so that it can be verified that Stripe is the one who is sending these events. So Stripe webhook secret create. And now we will need to redeploy. So if you go to deployments, we will get the option to redeploy your function. After redeployment, webhooks should technically work. Now let's go to overview. And actually I'm gonna go ahead and create a new platform, add a new platform. I wanna use web, and I'm using React. I'm just gonna use localhost. Please add something so that you are not dealing with CORS errors, like you should be adding this. Let's hit on create platform. And now we need to actually clone this repository. So let's go to our terminal, just paste this command. Hello. Yeah, let's hit enter. It will clone this, and now we should actually just do npm install. Let's wait for this. It should not be a lot of dependencies. Then we will do cursor dot and and npm run dev, so that we open cursor and then we do the dev server. Yeah, now we just need to make sure that we have these environment variables. So just rename this to .env and we should be good. Now let's wait for this. I'm just gonna replace these with this. Perfect. And now we can get started with our thing. So the dev server is already running. If we go to localhost 3000, localhost 5173, we have this Appwrite starter page. Now if we send a ping, it says congratulations, you connected your app successfully. If we go to our console, it says congratulations, you connected your app successfully. Perfect. And now we can get started with all the madness. Alright, so this starter template makes it very easy for you to communicate with Appwrite. So we already have an appwrite.js file which picks up the values from environment variables and initiates the Appwrite instance for us so that we don't need to do it manually. So we can simply go to app.jsx, and I want to remove everything. I don't want any of the JSX which we have here. And we're just going to remove all the unused imports. Don't need them. Now we will import them as we need them. And the next thing we need is first of all we need 3 states. So these are the 3 states we need. First of all is to keep track of if the user is logged in or not. Second, to see if the user is actually loading in, and if we don't know if the user is there or not, it's probably because the user is loading. Then we have the subscription, which will be the plan name. By default it's going to be loading because we are doing it on the client side. We will be fetching a lot from the server, so there will be loading states here and there. So the next thing we need to do is actually we need to create an use effect to check if the user is logged in or not. So we are gonna have an dependency of account. So whenever the account variable itself changes, we can refetch the user. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna paste this here. We're just gonna do account.get, which is very simple. Get the logged in user. You don't need to worry about cookies and stuff. Appwrite manages all of it for you. And then we can simply check if the user exists or not. If the user exists, we just do set is login true, set loading false, and if not, we just say set logged in false. If there is an error thrown, so if the user is not logged in or something like that, some other error, we can simply just say user loading false. Now, if the user is not logged in, we want to show something. So if the user is loading, we simply want to show this JSX. And we also want to have a default JSX as well. The next thing we need to do is we need to build the login user. So if the user is not logged in, if is logged in, instead of please log in to continue, we actually want to have a decent enough JSX. So let me just copy this and paste this here. Perfect. So basically what this is doing is we are just having a login with Google button, which is going to create an OAuth 2 session using Appwrite SDK. We are just saying that we want the Google provider and we want to be redirected back to this page. And then we will have the Google logo itself and the button. We also forgot to import stuff, so we need to actually import use state. I've saved this. If we go back and reload this, it is still not working. Alright, so the problem is because we forgot to import account, so we need to do that. Okay, so have we exported it? We have exported it. We need to manually import it, not a big deal. Import account. Perfect. And now the error should be gone. Let's save this. Let's go ahead, reload. Yeah, we have the login with Google button. It says user, yeah, because the user is not logged in, that's why we are getting the scope errors. But basically, if you just click on continue with Google, you should be able to log in. Since I had already chosen my Google account, it didn't show me that again, and Google just redirected us back. And now we can simply just say hello world. And if I try to reload this, we will see loading for a bit. So yeah, now in hello world, we need to have all our plans and stuff. So first of all, I want to see what plan does the user already have. So we need to create a use effect for it again. So use effect. I'm gonna actually go ahead and copy this because it's going to be easier for us. Perfect. Use effect. If the user is logged in, we want to try to get the subscription. So yeah, Now we can simply create the get subscription function, which would be something like this. We will get the response. We will use functions.create execution. We use this instead of fetch so that we pass in the context of which user. We pass the JWT to the server as well. This does a lot of neat things for you, so you don't need to use fetch yourself. The only thing we need to change here is the function ID. So let's just go ahead and go to console and go to functions. We just need to copy the ID and paste it here. Everything else is basically data. We don't need any data because this is a get route. The next thing is if this is supposed to be async. So if you set this to true, you will simply get a waiting response and you need to check back on it later on. The next thing is we are using get subscription. We are passing the route which we want the exact, and then we are passing the method, and then we are simply just passing the JSON which we are getting and setting the plan to the state. Now if we just go back, if we can just we can simply just go ahead and display the subscription. But before I do any of that, I just want to like copy the entire thing for you because it has a lot of styling and we are not going to be focusing on style in this tutorial. So I'm just going to paste this. We do need to change the function IDs here. So yeah, so what we are doing exactly here is we basically have this current subscription shown. Then we have two buttons, subscribe to Pro and Pro Max. If we click on the button, we are just simply creating an execution, passing the function ID. We are just specifying that the plan is Pro. If you remember, we used to check, we checked from the array before, and we just say async is false and we are false, and we are just going to pass this to the payments route itself. When we get back the checkout URL, we are just going to redirect to that checkout URL. All right, moment of truth. Let's click on subscribe to Pro and let's see what happens. Okay, we are here. Let's do card and let's do 424242. It needs to be 424242 or it's gonna fail. So everything can be anything else. The card number needs to be 4242. Let's go ahead and click on subscribe. Fingers crossed. No, I don't want to save this card. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Demo guards are not with me today. Let's see if this works or not. Okay. Do we get redirected? Oh, perfect. We have the Pro plan now. It made me really happy. All right, so we have the Pro plan, but now I want to try to cancel it. So if we go to subscription, try to reload this again. We have the subscription. What if I just go and cancel this immediately? Do we get the free plan? So subscription cancel. Let's go back here. Let's reload. Whoa, free. Perfect. So we have also worked on revoking the subscription and also subscribing itself. Perfect. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you understood how you could implement subscriptions in your Appwrite project using Stripe. It is very important. A few concepts are really important for you to understand. For example, like mapping customers into your database. I think it's really important. It will save you a lot of nightmare, and also fetching the subscription and not relying on the webhook event payload. I think these two things are really important, and I also showed you how you can revoke the subscription. So if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button and stuff. And if you want me to post more content on the Appwrite YouTube channel, make sure you leave a comment. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.